Welcome to Fantasia, home of the Melodious. My name's Azallea, and today, gonna be bringing you guys the update to my Melodious deck. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So starting off, we're gonna be playing two copies of Aria, the Melodious Diva. Now, Aria has a fantastic protection effect where she protects your Melodious monsters from targeting effects and by battle. So specific decks, mainly things like True Dracos, are gonna have a very tough time getting over this, unless of course they're playing things like the Monarch's Erupt or Skill Drain, but that should be a little less prevalent now that, Masterpiece is at 0. So that's something to keep in mind when moving forward in the format. So Aria against specific decks is very good, but also she's at 2 because you don't want to be overly reliant on her, and you don't really want to draw into her. You want to summon her from your deck with things like First Movement Solo, or summon her from the graveyard with things like Monster Reborn or Soul Charge. So you don't want to overly rely on her because the fact that there's so many generic removal in the game in the form of links now. So you have things like Ningirsu, you have things like Borlo Dragon. So those are things you need to keep in mind when you're playing this deck. So the next card that I play is going to be one copy of Elegy. I don't really like Elegy, but she is here to make Transmodify a more consistent card, so you can Transmodify any level 4 Light Fairy type monster into the Elegy. Her protection effect's alright. It protects some things like Dark Hole, Raigeki, the typical main deck outs that people might have to your Aria, so having access to this is not that bad. It also gives you a little attack boost, which is kind of nice for helping you attack over some of your opponent's monsters. So next off, we're going into some of the power plays of the deck. So we have 3 copies of Soprano, the Melodious Songstress, and she allows you to fuse for all of your fusion monsters with Melodious monsters that you control on your side of the field. And to help with that, to help make it more consistent, we're playing 3 copies of Canon, the Melodious Diva, and we're also playing 3 copies of Sonata, the Melodious Diva. Now, these 2 cards are very good for the deck because of the fact that they can just special summon themselves out from the hand to your side of the field if you control another Melodious monster. Canon can only do this once per turn, but Sonata is unlimited, which is why we play 3 copies of Sonata. And Sonata with something like Transmodify is fantastic for making an instant fusion play, because you can summon Soprano out from your deck, she can add back the Sonata from your graveyard, and then you can go for your fusion play after you special summon Sonata back to your side of the field. And now the last Melodious monster that I play in this deck is going to be one copy of Score, the Melodious Diva. Now this is unusual for my deck profiles. I don't usually put Score in here, but because the fact that Masterpiece is actually gone, it's at 0, this is a very powerful card now, because Score, if you don't know, is unlike Honest. This affects your opponent's monsters, so it turns your opponent's monster's attack to 0. And Honest is something that boosts your monster's attack. So in order to attack over Masterpiece, typically you want to use something like Honest, so it boosts your monster, and it doesn't have any effect on the Masterpiece, because usually Masterpiece is immune to monster effects. So that's why Score wasn't able to help you attack over it. But now that he's gone, Score is actually going to be a fantastic card, and it's very good in a lot of matchups because of the fact that Soprano can actually add this from your graveyard back to your hand. So it's not like Honest, where if you use it, it's basically gone unless you use like a revival card to bring it back and then add it from the field back to your hand. So it's kind of like a weird thing with Honest. I'm liking Score a lot in this current format, so with like the new ban list and Masterpiece gone and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's it for the Melodious monsters. Next off, we're going to go into some of the hand traps that we play. So very standard hand trap lineup going to this new format. We're not really sure what decks are going to be the deck to beat, so I'm just going to be playing 3 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit and 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Now, if you don't have Ash Blossoms, if you don't want Ash Blossoms, you can always replace it with something else. Effect Veiler is going to be pretty good as well in the upcoming format because you can Veiler things like the Goki combos and stuff, so that's not too bad at all. But yeah, these are 6 hand traps that I run, and that's going to be it for all of the monsters. Next off, we're going to go into the spell cards. So with the spell cards, we're playing a very typical lineup for this type of deck. We're playing 3 copies of First Movement Solo. Very easy for you to summon your Aria straight out from your deck to your side of the field, which is very nice. You can also summon Soprano from your deck, and that's going to be a really crucial thing, because mid to late game, if you have a clear field, you can always summon your Soprano, add something from your graveyard back to your hand, special summon out your Canon or Sonata that you just added back, and you have an instant access to something like Shiberta, which is going to be very powerful in potentially swinging you back into the game. Now, the next card that I play, I mentioned it earlier, but we're playing 3 copies of Transmodify. Fantastic card for this deck. I bumped it up from 2 to 3 because I wanted the consistency of these plays. The Sonata and Transmodify is such a strong power play in this deck. It's kind of inconsistent because you can't search your Melodious monsters, you can't search Transmodify, but in regards to that, we do have some draw power in the form of 3 copies of Pot of Desires. I bumped this up from 2 to 3 because I really like seeing this card. I know a lot of you guys don't like playing Desires, or you just don't like the concept of Desires, but the thing is, Melodious is so slow. You don't have any searching, you don't have any draw power in this deck. Desires is really, really powerful, and yeah, I know you banish the top 10 cards of your deck to draw 2 cards, but that is completely fine, because those 10 cards are cards you probably would never have seen before the game has ended. Your opponent can go through like 15, 20 cards in their deck before you even go through 10 cards. So having Desires is a really simple way to help you speed up your deck, and help you draw into the necessary combo pieces that you need in order to out your opponent's boards. Now, the rest of the spell cards that I play is going to be 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 1 copy of Soul Charge, and 1 copy of Raigeki. So the very typical 3 very strong one-ofs, limited for a reason, very powerful. Monster Reborn and Soul Charge are very MVP in this deck. Raigeki helps you get over some monsters that you typically can't get over normally, so things like Borreload and stuff, you can really easily get rid of it. So that's really nice. And Raigeki is also just great, you know, if you ever go second and you open up with this card, you can clear your opponent's board before you go ahead and establish your own. Alright, so that does it for all these spell cards. Next off, we're going to go into the trap cards. Now, the trap cards are very different in this build than my previous build. So, for those of you who are here like at the beginning of the channel, I loved this card. 3 copies of Mistake. This card is absolutely amazing, especially in this upcoming format where so many decks rely on searching, and because Melodious does not have any access to searching in terms of in the archetype or just generic searching in general, Mistake is fantastic. And the thing is, Mistake only prevents things like searching effects, so things that add from the deck to the hand. They don't prevent cards that draw, so it doesn't conflict with things like your own Pot of Desires, which is really nice. Now, the reason I play Ash and Mistake here is because you just want more cards to just stop your opponent's plays. Anything that you can do to interrupt their combos, to hinder them, to slow down their deck, the better it is for you. And because Mistake only stops things that add cards from the deck to the hand, they don't stop drawing, you can use your Ash Blossom on your opponent's Desires, you can use it on your opponent's, any other draw cards that they might have in their deck. So that's why those 2 cards kind of go together. It's really nice. The next card that I play is going to be 2 copies of Storming Mirror Force. Now, the reason why I play Storming Mirror Force in this deck is because typically your monsters are going to be really small, and your opponent's going to be baited into attacking your monsters, especially, you know, if you accidentally left an Arya in attack mode or whatever. She's going to be relatively low in attack points, only 1600. Your opponent's going to attack into it, you can Storming Mirror Force, you can get rid of a lot of amazing things, like your opponent's Borreloads or something that they're trying to use to steal your Arya or break your lock or something like that. And it's also really great for getting rid of Link monsters, because Link monsters can't be put into defense mode. So if your opponent declares an attack, and let's say they have a full field of Link monsters, they extra linked you or something like that, Storm Mirror Force is an easy way to just clear out everything and put you back into the game. It's a really nice card to help you swing those duels around. Next thing I play is going to be 2 copies of Solemn Strike. Stopping those monster effects is pretty good. Playing 1 copy of Solemn Warning, and then 1 copy of Solemn Judgment. So the little mini Solemn Brigade, I didn't play 3 strikes. I found a little too bricky. I found this ratio to be really nice, especially 3 mistakes, because with Pot Desires, it helps you increase your chances of drawing into these power cards, and these cards are going to be very good for helping you hinder your opponent's plays. Alright, so yeah, that does it for the trap cards. It's a 40 card deck. Next off, we're going to go into the extra deck. Alright guys, so for the extra deck, starting off with the Link monsters, we're starting off really simple, 2 copies of Underclock Taker. Underclock Taker is really just here for if you have something in extra monster zone, let's say you have an XYZ, like Fairy Chill Girl or something like that, you can always get rid of it, make your Link summon, and then under that you can summon like a Shiberta or another rank 4, whatever you need at the moment. So that's why Underclock Taker's here. It's also really good because it helps you attack over some of your opponent's monsters, because you can just, target the monster that's under the Underclock Taker, don't put your Arya here, and then you can target something your opponent controls, lowers attack, and then you can potentially attack over it, which is pretty nice. Now, we're also playing 1 copy of Saryuja, and we're also playing 1 copy of Borreload Dragon. As you can see, I'm obviously don't have those cards, but Saryuja and Borreload are going to be really good, because Saryuja helps you get that consistency, that draw power. Mistake doesn't hinder it, which is really nice, because you just draw 4, put 3 back, helps you see more cards, and Saryuja also allows you to summon monsters out from your hand, which is really good. You can special summon Soprano, add back something, go for fusion or XYZ plays afterwards. It's just a really powerful card in general. And the then Borreload Dragon's, of course, here to help you out your opponent's problematic monsters. You can even steal your opponent's Borreload and then use their Borreload to steal another monster, and then potentially use them to link summon into something else during your main phase too. So that's also something that you can do. Yeah, but just for link monsters, this deck doesn't really rely too much on link summoning, which is kind of good. But yeah, those are really just toolbox options. You don't have to play the Borreload, you don't have to play Saryuja. You can always replace them with something else if you don't want to, buy them. So next off, I'm playing the XYZs. One copy of Bujinte Tsukiyomi helps you with the draw power. Draw power is very important in this deck, as you can tell by the repeated emphasis that I'm putting on those concepts. One copy of Fairy Chirgo, again, draw power, really, really nice. One copy of Baguska. Baguska helps you slow down the game, helps you stall out if you don't really have any options, or your opponent just has too big of an oppressive field, and you just want to put everything into defense and just wait it out for a few turns, see if you can potentially draw some outs or draw some ways to establish your field, like, Monster Reborn, Soul Charge, and things like that. We're also playing one copy of Tornado Dragon, and then we are playing the Utopia package. Now, Tornado Dragon's here to help you with spell and trap removal, of course, because I don't main deck any of it, but you can always feel free to side deck, Cosmic Cyclones, Twin Twisters, things like that. I think I'd recommend Cosmic Cyclone as of right now because of things like Altergeist can recur traps from the graveyard and things like that. So, and it also gets rid of True Draco like spells and traps so that they can't activate in the graveyard to, pop your monsters or pop your spell and trap cards. Now, we also run the Utopia package because this helps you out, big monsters. So the problem with this deck is not only with its own consistencies, but, just your opponent having big monsters and your opponent's deck being way too fast and too fast for you to keep up with. So that's why we're playing a more slower version, a more control version of the deck. And Utopia Lightning helps you out those big monsters. So yeah, that's it for the XYZs. Next off, we're going to go into the Synchro and the Fusions. There's only one Synchro in this deck, and that's going to be Black Rose Dragon. One of my favorite Synchro monsters, actually. So Black Rose Dragon's here because just in case you draw into too many copies of Ogre or Ash, you can always use one of them to normal summon to Synchro into your Black Rose. You can always nuke the field, which is pretty good. Because your deck is so slow, sometimes, you need to reset the board and just start over. If your opponent has too many cards on their side of the field, it's too oppressive, you can just summon your Black Rose, nuke everything, and then start over fresh, which is kind of nice. So it's like a little toolbox option just because we had the space in the extra deck for it. Next off, I'm playing 2 copies of Shiberta, the Melodious Maestra. You only need 2 copies of Shiberta because the fact that, third one almost never comes up. And if you do need to, Soprano can put your fusions from your graveyard back into your extra deck, which is something that you can do if you need extra copies of it. But in my testing, it just never came up. We play 1 copy of Bloom Diva, and we also play 1 copy of Bloom Prima. Now, these 2 cards you almost never make, but those games that you do make them, they're going to be very, very crucial to your success. Now, Bloom Diva is very good because you can just, if your opponent has too many big monsters on their side of the field, you just ram into them, inflict burn damage to them, and destroy their monsters. Bloom Prima is really nice if they have a field full of smaller monsters that Bloom Diva wouldn't be the most efficient thing to go for. So Bloom Prima can just attack multiple times into your opponent's monsters, and you can easily summon these 2 by using Shiberta as your other fusion material. So, yep, that's going to be it for all of the extra deck monsters, and that's going to be it for the deck profile. So, thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please leave a like, subscribe for more Melodious content, and leave a comment down below letting me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.